Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Talking Couch. My name's Tim, and we are here in Masalit in Krakow, Poland. And my guest today is Karolina Czerska-Shaw. She has a Ph.D. in sociology and is an assistant professor at the Jagiellonian University here in Krakow, the Institute of European Studies. Her research interests include migration and mobility, European Union migration policies, citizenship, civic education, transnational civil society, migrant integration, and diversity management. She is a member of the Jagiellonian Center for Migration Studies and collaborates with the Multiculturalism and Migration Observatory at the Krakow University of Economics. She's also a founding member and collaborator at the Multicultural Center in Krakow. She's the author of numerous reports and studies on the integration of migrants in Krakow and Małopolska, participating in expert teams advising local and regional authorities in developing strategies for the integration of migrants. Her recent research projects include Work Package Lead on a Horizon Europe project, Reclaiming Liberal Democracy in the Post-Factual Age. I want to get into that one. As well as Peace Rep, Rethinking Peace and Transition Processes in a Changing Conflict Landscape, in collaboration with the Conflict and Civicness Research Group at the London School of Economics. Oof, fancy. This research focuses on the civic mobilization of Ukrainians in Poland, focusing particularly on leaders of social organizations and entrepreneurs in the face of Russia's full-scale aggression against Ukraine. I've also known Karolina for almost 2 decades now, and I have the pleasure of calling her a friend. And it is indeed an honor to have you as one of our first guests. So, without further ado, Karolina, welcome to the Talking Couch. What would you like to talk about?
First of all, thank you so kindly, Tim, for this very robust introduction and for the invitation. I'm really honored to be here on this lovely couch, speaking
Legendary.
legendary indeed, speaking to you about things that 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 I research and I'm passionate about. So thank you. So yeah, what to talk about? Like where to start? And I think maybe one place that we could start is with looking at the full scale invasion in Ukraine and actually what happened in the aftermath of the initiation of the full scale invasion. And one thing that I've been researching here, along with other colleagues, is the forced migration into Poland and the civic mobilization in response, yeah,
Right.
to the forced migration, so more humanitarian kind of responses, as well as responses to the war effort in Ukraine and kind of thinking about redevelopment already, yeah, in Ukraine. And so that has to do with migration and the effects that the migration has had on Poland, on Polish society, looking at civic ecosystems and civic mobilization and what that means also for democracy. This is, a big topic that I think you want to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. For a lot of our listeners and audience, they might not know actually what happened from the Krakow perspective. And this is something that, I think I'd like to touch on a little bit here. But maybe I'd be interested to hear what you remember of those first couple weeks, first couple months, and what you immediately got involved with, what organizations, and some things that you and people you work with were doing.
Hmm. Yeah, really good question. I think how I can describe it is just this massive mobilization and constant kind of your high adrenaline, right? That you have, you're and I was really on this kind of sidelines of things going on and observing and helping when I could. And there were so many fantastic people, right? Who dedicated really day and night to mobilizing.
And you're
Yeah.
talking about
So
Cracovians, you're talking about Poles, you're talking about
I'm talking about Poland, but I can speak from a Krakow perspective,
sure.
right? So in the first days, obviously you had the train station, right? And the so people were coming in into the train station, and so people
These were the
started.
first wave of refugees, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so people started thinking, okay, those people need, well, first of all, they need food. First of all, they need care for, they need a place to sleep. They need, they need actually to be connected with other people. So, there was like a Soup for Ukraine organized kind of grassroots organization that set up shop in the train station. They're handing out soup and they're handing out, food. And then the scouts came and they started organizing. And then the Red Cross also had their point. And then the city, had the reception point. And then the regional government, started also to have their their reception point. And then actually the first, major breakthrough was there were a few NGOs that got together, and they talked to the theater, Słowacki Theater,
Mhm.
and they took over one building,
Oh, that's right.
and it was an emergency shelter, right? But also information point.
Yeah.
And this is something that happened within, a few days. Yeah. So people acted quickly. And maybe one thing I can say, on the eve of the full scale invasion, you had, and this comes from my research and talking with members of the Ukrainian led organizations. The Ukrainian led organizations got together, in a space on the eve and said, okay, what are we doing? Okay, you're doing this. We're good at this. We're doing this. And so they kind of divvied up the tasks. Yeah. And then the next year, the day after, there was a meeting at the in the city hall. Yeah. And I was there. There were a lot of different organizations there, people from different places. And that's when there was this kind of very loosely connected, loosely coordinated idea of what became called the Open Krakow Coalition. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And Open Krakow comes from actually the city strategy that encompasses the multicultural center. It's been around since 2016, right? So it's called the Open Krakow program,
Mhm.
and they do different events and things. But, so the name from Open Krakow was taken and this kind of coalition, very loose, coalition was made. And there were hundreds of people, and in different organizations saying, okay, you work in tech, yeah? Okay, great. Okay, so can you hook us up here? We need to actually build an app to see where and to locate all of the pickup points for food and
Mhm.
and goods, material goods, right? So we need to, yeah, can you help us with that? Yeah, check, thanks, Tim. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then the next one, okay, you're a lawyer, great. Okay, so you're gonna be, so yeah, okay, I work here, I have English and Polish and these other languages. Okay, we're gonna be doing the transfers to other and kind of coordinating transfers to other European countries. And so, people in various different, sectors had to kind of step up to the plate, and they wanted to, right? Because, and the question is, okay, what happened in Poland that there was such a massive mobilization? Maybe just to, kind of give you a sense, there were
Mhm.
the UNHCR, so the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, they're the ones, where you see in different conflict zones and you see the UN kind of tents, the refugee kind of camps, right? And the tents that are UN kind of supported. Yeah. And that's the UNHCR. And when they came to the borders, right, of Poland and Ukraine, they realized actually they don't need b people were going and they were going to private houses. They were being kind of welcomed into homes, and there was actually no physical need, right, for those camps. So again, this kind of bottom up, mobilization, and really quick reaction from the society, which also it has to be said, had Ukrainian nationals who were already here in in Krakow in Poland, also at the forefront of those actions, right? So the first 3 months, you can say that there was just this super high level of intense collaboration between you know um, total grassroots people, individuals, I mean, we called them like freelance volunteers. They were coming in from not only Poland but from abroad. You had I had phone calls sometimes because I speak some French, and they were like, oh, okay, we have this French guy coming with like this huge truck full of things. Where can he go? Right? Like, okay, so okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah, and
yeah,
I have one example as well 'cause, I did, a short piece for, a London, newspaper,
yeah.
and they put me in touch with, a British guy that drove from the north of England,
Hmm.
drove just straight to the Poland-Ukraine border
Mm.
with, a huge, passenger van,
Yeah,
and, he was a plumber, I think,
yeah,
and, he didn't think twice. I mean, he just went.
yeah,
And, he was when he got here to the border, he basically just asked, "Who needs me? Do I need to pick up people? Do I need to do something?"
yeah.
And, I ended up interviewing him in Krakow, and, he had stayed for, I think, 3 or 4 days, and when I think you may have helped actually put me in touch with him because he was getting involved in I think the Plaza,
Mm.
clothing,
The Goodwill
shelter.
wardrobe.
Yeah, 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 maybe speak a little bit about this because this was amazing. This blew my mind.
Yeah, I think it's a really good actually example of of a lot of things happening at the same time, right? So the then director of the Internationalisbund Polska, so the operator of the Multicultural Center, Marysia Wojtacha, she and the team there, realized that okay, what we need now is not just a small space where we, hand out clothes and different things. There was a space next to the multicultural center. Actually, we need something a lot bigger because the lines, the queues were just like around the corner all the time, every day. Right? We're like, okay, no, we need to think bigger. And so Marysia got on the phone, and um, there was this place called like, the Plaza, shopping center that was completely empty. It was meant to be demolished, and
Yeah.
now it is. And but it was not being used. And she's like, "Listen, we need that space, right?" So she called the right people. I don't know how it happened. Anyway, got things done. And so IB Polska went in, and said, "Okay, what do we need now? We need like an IKEA style shop, right?" So called IKEA. And IKEA actually really stepped up to the plate, along with a lot of other big companies, yeah, that, all of a sudden their CSR, kind of mushroomed,
Yeah.
right? And there was,
Corporate social responsibility.
thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes.
CSR.
All of a sudden there was this like huge outpouring of, of big company money because also
Well, it's a tax write-off, but it's
it's
also
good
looks
for
really
business
good.
and it looks
Looks
really
really
good
good.
and it's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's safe. Yeah. And IKEA went in there. They did, the whole like they put up the like the rows of, and the hangers and things. But then okay, but then we needed, changing
Change
rooms,
arrows, yeah.
right? Like okay, and so I was somewhere else at the time, and I was contacting talking to colleagues. Okay, what do we need? Changing rooms. We need people who can make these changing rooms. I'm like, hold on, my neighbor, he's an engineer and his company wants to do something. Let me call him. Okay, so I called Rob and said, Rob, we need some, changing rooms. Are you able to do it? He's like, just give me 10 minutes. I'll call you back. Got me back in 10 minutes. He's like, we can do it, tonight, right? Got a group of people together, came in with their tools, did the changing rooms, and that was his company. And the changing rooms were done. And then other things, so other things happened like that, right? And within a few weeks, this what was called the Goodwill wardrobe, yeah, opened up. And so it was basically a shop where forced migrants could come in and get what they need for free. Yeah. And there was a whole system, but to operate that, it was a huge space. To operate that, you need logistics. You need a scanning system. You need, so okay, you got IT guys, and gals, right? That made this really, really funky, system of tracking. And then you had volunteers from everywhere. Right. Yeah, that came in because you needed people to sort the clothes, you needed people to, you needed a whole bunch of people, right? So every day there were people, and there was this big organization, also NGO from Norway, that came, and they were just, they were there the whole time, working, and volunteers would come, people from really like all over the world, yeah, coming to say, what can I do to help?
Maybe to give some additional context to,
Mm.
to our listeners. So there's so much happens in a short period of time. But what kind of numbers are we talking about in terms of the influx of refugees and forced migrants?
Mm. Okay, so I mean, maybe just in terms of terminology,
Yeah.
yeah. So we have okay, I say forced migrants. They're okay, the war refugees, or we look at those who came from Ukraine and that were under the temporary protection
Hmm.
directive. So as let's call them those under temporary protection, yeah, because then there are refugees who come in through different asylum kind of seeking routes, yeah, that go through different procedures. And so just to kind of separate them in terms of statistics for a second. I mean, so in the first, in the first year, in the first months, after February 24th, 2022, we had upwards of like it was. I mean, we count in terms of crossings, right? So it can
Okay.
be one person with multiple crossings, but thinking about crossings, it's upwards of, in like up to 7-8 million, right? Crossings. Doesn't mean that that those forced migrants stayed in Poland. So after the first year, there was something like 1.5 million registered
In Poland.
Ukrainians
In Poland.
under the temporary protection directive in Poland. Right now, at the end of 2024, um, it was just under a million. So it
Hmm.
was 900,000 something. Yeah.
And
And
those are the official
yeah,
numbers, right?
yeah. So those are those who have registered to be under that temporary protection that now has been extended to 2000 and it's 2026, and now they're talking about 2027, but we'll see. And so again, in Poland, it's just under a million. Maybe just to put it into perspective in terms of all the international or the foreign nationals in Poland, we have around 2.5 million at this point in time. So somewhere around 6% of the population.
Mhm.
Just to put it into perspective, a decade ago, it was, those numbers were at around 2% of the population. So within a decade, Poland actually has gone from a net emigration country to a net receiving country. And this is from, 2000, exactly from 2016 onwards. And so, so Poland has gone through this really, really very quick also social transformation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we look at Krakow and we look at, so obviously international migration, and this is not just true of Poland, but in, around the world, migrants usually tend to come to the bigger cities, yeah, because that's where they have connections, that's where they have more possibilities. And so, in a city like Krakow, right now, there are something like, in terms of all registered foreign nationals, not just Ukrainians, there's there are different ways to gather the statistics. Phyllis said that, the kind of the one that we count kind of, average out is around 76,000 or 70 and 70 to 70 few thousand,
Hmm.
which is about 9% of the population. So actually, we're thinking about, one in every 10, a little bit less, one in every 10 people in Krakow who are resident here are foreign nationals. And this is just this extraordinary transformation. If you think about 20 years ago when we first came here, or, others of the pack people, right, who
Yep.
came a little bit before,
We were exotic,
we were exotics,
which is
exactly,
strange.
right?
Being North Americans, it was quite surprising.
Absolutely, right? So now you have this, you have this really kind of intensified, multiculturalization, right? Of the especially of the urban spaces. And so that, so that also changes really the kind of the fabric, right? Of society. And that has its really, really interesting, really dynamic, innovative points, but also its challenges, right? And we
Or
see that in the anti-migrant discourses, and we see that in the backlash, right?
Yeah, and this is what I wanted to ask you next,
Mm,
because we started talking about all of the the amazing things and how quickly Poles and expats in Poland, in Krakow, and people from outside of Poland reacted in the immediate aftermath.
mm,
But then things started to shift, right? Once it became clear that the war was going to last for a long time,
mm,
right?
mhm,
And well, there was always hope that there would be a quick resolution, but I think after the first year, I
mm,
think, when it stopped being in the world's, let's say, news feeds
yeah,
and news cycles, and they focused on something else, then the reality began to change, right, on the ground. And, then we began getting into another phase. And I don't want to get into the backlash
mm,
necessarily yet, but I'm curious because this is something I think the being an expert in migration studies, how did things evolve just in terms of the day to day and sort
mm,
of, Ukrainians that decided to stay, that didn't move on to other countries?
mhm.
How did what you and your organization, with the Multicultural Center, how did you observe things changing, and how did you help out to sort of facilitate the longer term residency of these migrants?
Mm. Yeah, lots of things to, discuss there. I think, okay, one thing is that by and large, also, and this maybe has to be said along with the statistics, is that by and large, the migration that is coming to Poland, and this is before and also after the full scale invasion, that they're well, okay, after the full scale invasion, yeah, certainly more women with children, but also, people of working age, also also older generations. But if you take the kind of total of foreign nationals in Krakow, but also in Poland, it's actually a rather highly educated population, even more so in terms of those who finished secondary education,
Mhm.
more so than the Polish population. So you have, by and large, a quite a young and active and economically active population, right, of foreign nationals, and this is extremely important in terms of the demographics, right?
Mhm.
And so, so these are people who don't, uh, you know, um, people help themselves as well, and people make communities to help themselves, and we saw that on such incredible scale, also with forced migrants who, we had interviews and connections with a lot of, well, also women, right? Who came, and the next day they were volunteering, and then they set up their own businesses. And one interesting statistic is that in the last year, the amount of businesses that were open, the one-person businesses, yeah, that were open in Poland were largely female and also Ukrainian led, right? So these are entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
right? These are people who have something to offer. But sometimes they don't have the means because, to be able to, I don't know, support their children, or elderly parents who are there. And also we have to take into account we have a population of people who haven't experienced trauma, right? And the effects of war, right? And Poland hasn't had experience with that.
Mm.
Yeah, Poland, prior to 2022 in Krakow, there was something like maybe it was under 100 registered refugees. And so now we have just this exponentially larger population of those who can work, who can do different things, but who also may need more support in terms of in terms of psychological support, in terms of well-being, right? And so this is something that also we have kids in the school system. We have teenagers who, as those of us who, teenagers at home, you know that they need support, right? So these are challenges that are coming in, right? But when you asked about, okay, so what is changing, what is happening?
Yeah.
Okay, so and what we're doing to support, again, I think there's a lot of community support coming from, and I think I have to underscore this kind of the agency of those migrants themselves,
Mhm.
right? Because they're amazing at organizing, they're amazing at getting things done because
Mhm.
they have to. Yeah.
Right.
But okay, so that's on a kind of a grassroots level, right? And there are NGOs, and there has been also a mushrooming of NGOs, so formalized organizations who are dealing with, kind of inclusion, diversity. Polish language classes are like flourishing everywhere. Things like, also just events for kids.
Mhm.
You have this great initiative that is a part of IB Polska in Nowa Huta, and it's called it's like the community center there. And so you have Polish language classes, but it's meant to be for the locals, right? It's meant to be for the neighborhood, right? So anyone can come in and feel at home, and they can, so I was talking to a colleague just, a few weeks ago, and they're saying, oh yeah, one of the initiatives is actually there were like a Polish group of kind of seniors that came in, and they're doing like a cooking class with Ukrainian seniors, and then, and so people come in with, people have ideas. People have their own ideas, and they want to be able to share them, right? And that's, I think what the multicultural center is doing, but also, other initiatives, is facilitating that. And I think that, so it's not about, kind of giving so much support. It's about enabling people to actually come up with their own initiatives, and to feel like they belong.
Right.
Yeah.
Fishing rod, not the fish.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And it works, yeah, and we see, there are organizations that are also run by those forced migrants themselves, some amazing initiatives, yeah, that there's one in Dębniki, Kocham Dębniki, that actually was started by Polish, a few Polish residents of Krakow, but then kind of handed over to those people who were coming to get support in the first place. But actually they've now kind of, they have ownership of it, right? And they lead it.
Mhm.
Um there's another amazing kind of organization, sure, like Unity, that they work with teenagers particularly, and the young people, and it's like they have this idea of a democracy school, that they're implementing, and they picked up, there was, they had an organization in Dnipro, and they there were, I forget how many women, but about 12 or 13, a dozen, of them that came with kids, and they they settled here in Krakow, right? And now they're doing amazing things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And by the way, this is, one of the missions of what we're doing with Pack People and the Talking Couch.
yeah.
We hope to get Ukrainian voices as well on this show to hear from some of these people,
Mm.
specifically because I think, and I would love to finish on this, positive note.
Mm.
But the reality is
Mm.
that there's also we do need to talk about the backlash,
Mm.
and because I think it's equally important, because in Poland we just went through a presidential cycle, and the broader context of what we're doing, and what's happening in the U.S. with Trump, the fact that the war is still going on.
Mm.
So there's a lot of negative forces that are acting upon this very local community.
Mm.
And there's forces that are invisible that are acting on
Mm.
the communities that are also acting on, Poles versus Ukrainians, that are presenting new challenges. And,
Mm.
I wanted to maybe ask your opinion on, first of all, when you started to first observe a backlash from the local communities, or let's say Polish community in general, against the Ukrainian migration
Mm.
post-war, and what, in your opinion, are some of the ways that locals can fight against this backlash?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, as you say, it is important to look and see and monitor how attitudes change, right? And maybe if I can start off with some statistics from the
Great.
from the CEBOS, which is the kind of statistical kind of research organization that
Hmm.
do large scale research in Poland. And at the beginning, so in the first months of the war, they were surveying Polish people, and the question was how, if you or someone in your household is helping, kind of the war effort, let's say, right, or Ukrainian forced migrants, and it was upwards of, it's like over 70%, right, of the over 70% of the population was doing something. That's amazing, right? And those numbers have dropped, and then the other question was, would you are you in line with government policy to accept forced migrants, and particularly from Ukraine, but forced migrants? And there it was, in 2022, it was 1% was against. Yeah, so there's this kind of 1% who were saying no, no, we shouldn't. Um, that's now at 43%.
Mm.
So this is a huge, huge, turn, right? And the question is why? Yeah? So I think, there are the kind of natural, factors that come into play. Okay, there such an influx of people does create challenges for many parts of kind of the functioning of society. Okay, there's a strain on the healthcare system because any healthcare system is already strained,
Yeah.
right? And so that's just the nature of the healthcare system. It's always going to be strained, right? Okay, so and that creates also, the tensions, societal tensions. Oh, we have to wait so much longer to get into, the specialist treatment. Why? Oh, well, you know, let's blame the migrants. It's like the natural scapegoat, right? And there's okay, yeah, because there are more people in the system for sure, right?
Yeah.
So then, so there are these kind of natural challenges that happen, and also, the I think the distance between, these emotions of kind of love and hate are sometimes very short, and so we have this like had this real kind of emotional, like mobilization,
Yeah.
right? But then you have also, human interactions that may be because they're so
Compassion
intense.
fatigue.
Exactly, right? So intense. They're not grateful. They didn't do, or so many kind of issues of miscommunication as well, right? So, but those are natural things. Yeah, let's just say they're kind of a natural part of social transformation. What makes it um, dangerous and what makes it really get to the level that we're seeing actually now in Poland is the politicization of the issue,
Right.
right? And that's where things get nasty, right? Because politicians, and now we see it really on many sides.
Yep.
Yeah, unfortunately, obviously, much more to the far right, but then kind of going, to the center and what it has been termed the left of center. So the ruling, the kind of the ruling coalition, particularly, the civic platform, that they because we know that the attitudes have changed, yeah? Um, and we know that, there is fatigue, yeah?
Yeah.
And that's the moment where, politics feeds on these issues and creates moral panic amongst the populace. Oh, they're stealing our jobs. They're going to overrun us. Oh, there's and the like the dirt, the historical kind of dirt that comes out of the closet. Let's talk about Boeing and so these historical tensions and atrocities, that happen that weren't worked through,
Yeah.
right, before. They come up and they get used and they get politicized, yeah, for political purposes, yeah, and it gets nasty because people feed on it. And then, another thing you were saying then, okay, so you have the political level, but then you have also this whole online space and the whole space of disinformation that seeps through because people lap it up, right? Because, we all need the other, right? And the migrant is this the, is the other, the perennial other, right? But
And the algorithms were built for hate speech, really.
absolutely, right? So, yeah, because, the goal is user engagement. We know that emotional and particularly negative emotions are more clickbaitable,
Yeah.
yeah, than positive ones. That's what makes it into these different bubbles, right? And come on, there's a lot of disinformation that's coming that is also in the framework of foreign
Yeah.
interference,
Cyber
right?
terrorism. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that is, and that's one of the aims of the kind of byproducts of Putin's war, right? There's this concept called, so we have the concept of kind of old wars and new wars, and the
Yeah.
and the concept of new wars was one that was kind of conceptualized by Mary Kaldor and others, and the concept of new wars is one that where the end goal is not claiming of territory in and of itself and not conquering in and of itself. It's maintaining it's maintaining chaos and violence. It's
Mm.
the maintenance of chaos and violence, right?
Mhm.
And that's what, that's also we have to take that into account, right? And we're right on the front lines, right? Of of not only a traditional kind of old war, but also a new war, and that, and one of the, kind of byproducts of the situation on the Polish-Belarusian border is not, this orchestrated migration crisis, right, by the Lukashenko regime in Belarus. Who's standing, right beside him is Putin. And again, the end goal is to, okay, show this kind of hypocrisy that is also present in the European Union. Oh, we're a humanitarian kind of actor, but we're pushing people back,
Mm.
right? And not being very humanitarian, but it's about sowing discord. It's about polarizing the population because that works, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Divide and conquer, I think.
divide and conquer,
Yeah.
exactly, right? And so we see we now this we're entering, I'm afraid, into this moment of really kind of now ugly backlash, and Poland's not, it's not the only one, that uses or, where migrants are used for political purposes.
Indeed, yeah, and this is sort of the broader perspective on, I think, what we're trying to do, why we're getting involved, let's say, as expats in Krakow, and sitting on this couch and discussing these issues, because things are getting to I think we're beyond the inflection point, and I hope there's a tipping point in terms of people wanting to, from the ground up, do grassroots activities
Mm,
to promote civil discourse and to discuss these issues out loud,
mm,
so that we can begin hopefully trying to create some positive change, and at least to raise the level of discourse, because things have gotten very bad very quickly
mm,
certainly in the last 6 months of the Trump administration, specifically. But what's happening in the U.S. does have a very real impact on our day-to-day lives actually here in Poland, and I think the opposite can also be true. And I think the lessons, I think, everything you've shared with us today about, you know, the way that Poles, expats and Ukrainians reacted in the aftermath of the war, and now now what we can do today
mm,
to continue to fight for a healthy society, and to also counteract, yeah, on both sides,
mm,
all of the negative effects of tyranny, right? And that's kind of what, I would love to get into so many other topics here, and
mm,
because you're also very active, at the EU level, which I think is, fascinating. So I think we're going to have a part two
mm,
with you at some point. But I
mm,
think what I would love to leave our listeners with is on a positive note.
mm,
And, we talked a lot about some of your work before the war with the Multicultural Center. Um, what are some positive things that you're seeing? And what are you positive about personally in terms of what comes next? What you're seeing in terms of the migration, so the communities integrating and moving forward in Krakow, that might be lessons for other people that might be listening today.
mm. Um, yeah, I am. My hope, yeah, and I think my positive kind of outlook comes from at a local level and comes from civil society in a kind of a broader sense, not just, big NGOs, and lobby groups, but really kind of communities coming together and doing things just for for the community and for for neighbors, right? And I think that is what worked in Poland in this kind of, mass scale mobilization is the kind of positive connections between different types of people. So, entrepreneurs, kind of local activists, NGOs, also the city. And, so you have different actors coming together actually to make a difference, right? Into the local community, because at the end of the day, actually, most people want to live in peace and,
Mhm.
and have a safe place for their children to run around in and have, have a nice time in their, I don't know, their local parks, right? And have activities and, and have communities coming together and we see that happening, right? And there are so many amazing initiatives and such strength and resilience in those, those migrant communities who have and particularly the forced migrant communities who have to be tough. They are, I've talked to just so many amazing people who have gone through so much, but they have a vision. They want, they want to do things and they do realize them and they do them, right? They just need sometimes the access to certain resources to be able to do that, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's, that it happens again, it happens on community levels, right? And civil, kind of civic activism, yeah, that comes into it. And then, on the kind of on the political level, on the, on kind of the higher levels, we need facts. We need to be able to talk about facts, No, Ukrainians are not draining the welfare system here. Actually, they are putting in much more into the economy than they are taking out.
Mm.
And actually in Poland, it's upwards of like 65%, which is higher than the Polish population, like the working population, that is in employment. And that's a fact,
Yeah.
right? We have those facts.
This is
So
great, actually.
yeah,
And one thing I wanted to mention, because maybe if you know any websites or anything that people can get actual facts that have been checked, so that it would be great if you could share that, and we can add them in the comments below.
for sure. Yeah, so there have been reports, absolutely. There are reports every year, that are coming out on particularly the kind of the economic outcomes and situations that we have. Yeah, I can share the reports. Here we have the statistics in terms of the actual numbers of people, the demographics, also the statistics and the reports on crime rates. And we have the facts. Actually, no, the crime rates, here have not gone up. No, the rate of rape has not gone up, and this is something that is coming out really, really kind of in the anti-migrant discourses, is that that there's higher crime rates, there's this and this and that. Well, where are your facts? Let's talk about facts and let's talk about how to interpret them. And I'm not saying that there aren't challenges. There are, for sure. We live in the 21st century. We live in a very mobile, very mobile world. Yeah, there are challenges, huge ones.
Mm.
Yeah. But let's stick to the facts and let's work on those challenges, right? And
Mhm.
and again, I think that largely happens from the local level and the kind of bottom up level, and then we have to keep on checking and fact checking and calling out those half truths, lies, bullshitting, that
Yeah.
take place on the political level, on the national and international level.
Amen.
Amen, and let's
Yeah.
go from there.
Yeah, and that is definitely what we want to do with this couch in this room in this space, and with this group that we have put together with the pack people. Um, Carolina, thank you so much for being our guest. And as I mentioned already, I would love to have you back, because I know your experience, a lot of your research and your activism. It's just I'm so humbled by all that you do, and it's just great to call you a friend. And yeah, we'll see you next time on the Talking Couch.
Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, and I'm humbled by you and this couch. So thank you.
Thank you much. Thank you, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Talking Couch.